Hey, what is up YouTube fam? It's Ben here. Welcome back to another video. Today we continue our beginner series where we break down the foundational yoga poses, and today we're going to jump into cat and cow pose. These shapes originate from the tabletop position. I'm going to go ahead and get into my tabletop position, which is simply wrists below shoulders, about shoulders width distance apart, knees below hips, about hips width distance apart, and the tops of the feet can press down into the mat. And if that's uncomfortable, you can always tuck your toes behind you. It's whatever feels good to you. And so this shape is important because it's in pretty much every single yoga class, especially any type of vinyasa or flow. And it's a great grounding shape that is pretty available and allows us to start getting into and warming up the muscles around the spine and abdomen. It also allows us to start bringing some mindfulness into our practice by linking our movements to our breath. So from this tabletop position, I'll go through a couple cues just to get us stable from the foundation. So we want the spine to be in a pretty neutral position here. We want to find slight external rotations of the arms so the triceps wrap back as the biceps point forward. And I like to have my pointer finger, my index finger facing straight in front of me as the middle finger kind of faces a little bit in a diagonal and the thumbs face toward each other on my mat. I like to bring a little space between my fingertips so I can grip the mat and have a wider foundation. And then just holding this nice steady shape, engaging enough in the core that we're not dumping down into the wrists. We're feeling this lifting up, this lightness sensation. And so with that being said, we'll jump into the cat-cow movements and what those mean. But first I'm going to bring up some terms, which is flexion and extension. When we talk about cat pose and cow pose, we're essentially flexing and extending the spine, and that's what makes the difference between the two shapes. So flexion, I'll show you using my elbow as an example because it can be a little bit easier to visualize. So flexion at the elbow essentially just means closing the joint, right? Closing the angle at that joint, and extension means opening it up, right? Flexion, extension. And it's the same with cat-cow, except we are talking about the spine. So for cat pose, when we round and push away, we are flexing the spine. We are in a state of flexation as we are closing the angle of the spine. When we come into cow pose, by coming into a back bend, we're extending the spine. We're increasing the angle as we create a back bend, right? A heart opener. So we're going to start by explaining the foundation of cat pose. Cat pose is when we push the ground away, we round the spine, and come into this state of flexion. So we're rounding. I'll start at the pelvis. We're finding that posterior tilt in the pelvis. So we're kind of pressing the pelvis forward and down a little bit. And we're rounding throughout the whole spine. We're protracting the shoulder blades, which means we're filling the space between the shoulder blades and the upper back. We're feeling that dome sensation occur as our wings spread out on that upper back. We're slightly tucking the chin closer to the chest as we create, again, even more flexion, even in the neck and head area. And we're hugging the core, the belly button. Imagine it hugging into the spine and creating so much lift. So most importantly in cat pose, we are engaging the whole front side of the body. So the chest, the abdomen, the core, they all activate and engage, and that allows us to stretch, create an openness and a stretching sensation in the back side of the body. So that's essentially what we're doing here. And generally, cat pose is come into on an exhale. And the reason that is as we exhale, we come into cat pose. Cat pose naturally compresses the rib cage and diaphragm area, which goes along very nicely with the exhale as we release air out of our system. On the other hand, as we come into cow pose is when we dip the belly, curl the chest forward, and come into this state of extension in the spine for cow pose. So again, I'll work from the pelvis first. We're finding that anterior tilt in the pelvis, so kind of feeling our hips pull up and back a little bit as we drop through our belly. When we bring it into the shoulder blades, we want the shoulder blades to almost be coming closer together on the back. So we can almost feel the shoulder blades want to kiss together on the upper back, and that creates more space in the chest and front body. We want to look forward and continue that state of extension all the way up until the cervical spine in the neck. We just want to be careful to avoid any crunching sensations in the neck. So I like to invite in the analogy of imagining we are holding a neck in this space between the back of the skull and sort of the upper back or back of the neck, right? Imagine a little egg was right there. And so we want to have enough extension in the neck that we could hold the egg still, but not enough that we're going to crunch the egg and make the shell break. And it's the same thing. We don't want any crunchiness or stress happening in our neck. We just want to continue that extension. So in our cow pose here, we are engaging all of the muscles on the back side of our body. So when we think about the back muscles, the shoulder blades, all those little muscle groups on the back side of the body, they're all strengthening and engaging. Think locust pose here, which we will get into in another video. But for now, we're using that engagement in the muscles in the back body to find a stretch in the front side body. So the core, the abdomen, the chest, the rib cage, they're all stretching and expanding. And that's why cow pose works well on our inhale. So we exhale in our cat pose as we compress the abdomen, and we inhale into our cow pose as we open up the abdomen and the rib cage. So that's where we get these nice fluid motions between cow pose and cat pose, is moving with our breath. And that's where we start to bring in this mindfulness of yoga, this connection between mind and body. As we inhale, the belly drops, curl the chest forward into our state of extension in cow pose. And as we exhale, we round and push everything away, compressing the rib cage, opening in the upper back and all throughout the back as we exhale into this state of flexion. So it's an inhale into cow pose, an exhale into cat pose. Inhale into cow pose, exhale into cat pose. And so that's essentially the breakdown there. And again, you'll see this a ton in many yoga classes, whether it's an active, energizing class or whether it's even more on the restorative or gentle side. But cat-cow really is a lovely place to start to integrate. And some ways that I like to kind of find that mindful flow state in cat-cow, or I like closing my eyes and just tuning into all of those sensations in the body. I like slowing down, and I like finding my breath and allowing my breath to dictate the length and speed of my movements rather than the other way around. So maybe start breathing, taking that inhale, and then start moving into your cow pose. And when you're at the fullest state of your inhale is when you're at the fullest state of your cow pose, your back bend. And then start exhaling before you start moving into your cat pose. And then when you're completely empty, out of air at the bottom of your exhale is when you're in the greatest state of flexion into your cat pose. So you can start integrating and taking the poses a little bit deeper in that way. So hopefully that gives a good background. And now when you're in a class and a teacher cues, okay, now go through some cat-cows, now you can think back and say, okay, there's actually a lot to think about here, and I can start warming into my body as well as integrating my breath. So again, hopefully y'all enjoyed. I love sharing this space with you, so thank you so much for watching. Drop in the comments any other shapes that you want a breakdown for or what you want to see in the classes, and I'll look out for that. But until next time, I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see y'all soon. So peace and love.